No, look, let's move on because public hospitals are on life support as performance drops to its lowest level ever. Planned surgery wait times are the longest on record, while emergency departments are failing to treat on time as many as 1 in 3 people with life-threatening conditions. Craig, that is a big worry. What's going on here?
Well, one of the things we expect as Australians, for our service, for our taxes, for our working lives, is decent, timely health services. And that to make sure that Medicare and other services that we have are broad enough so that Australians can can access timely and cost-effective health services that they need. And you talked about mental health as an incredibly important one. So
yes.
It's clear that hasn't been happening, and this is one of many issues we've discussed here over the last month. Right? We talked about the road tolls, which I'm certainly not a fan of. I think it's ridiculous in a resource-rich country that we're paying for that. And this is another red flag to say, all Australians saying, OK, this needs to be solved. But in order to do so, we have to go to the root causes, and we have to look at where the taxpayer funds go and look at the allocation of taxpayer funds. And so I think it's time to have that conversation.
Well, I've got to say, Craig, you've also got to look at what's transpired in the last 12 to 18 months. Why is there so much more pressure on public hospitals? Well, I can tell you why. It's because 73% increase in the number of people arriving into Australia, from 437,000 to 727,000 in a matter of months, in 12 months last year. The pressure of migration will put extra pressure on hospitals. There's no question of that. Can I just say these wait lists were actually under control after COVID. All data that you saw around Australia essentially showed that there was some, that it stabilised, the waiting lists and so forth, and the type of services and surgeries coming out of emergency and indeed elective surgery. It's actually skyrocketed now, the waiting lists, and you're seeing the worst. It's the worst numbers in 20 years now because of the number of people that have come into Australia in the last 12 months, 12 to 18 months.
Well, there was another record in February. It's gone up by 20%
and it's gone up again. So, and when you've got those type of numbers, a net gain of something in the order of 520,000 people in a matter of 12 months, of course there's going to be pressure on the health system. As there is already on housing, we know that.
Of course,
and it doesn't surprise me that there's now additional pressure on the hospital system.
Well, let's be careful we don't blame everything on migrants and, continue to do so. Because last year,
those numbers are large, Craig. Those numbers are large.
I don't have the breakdown, but I take your point. I take your point. But I do think that we are pointing the finger at migrants a lot without looking at the underlying issues. And I saw a piece today about the New South Wales Health Minister already onto this last year or the year before, that there was something like 14,000 people on the wait list. That's down to 2,000.
But it's up again. That's the point, Craig. It was under control for some period there, and it's back up again.
I'm sure there's a number of factors, and that is likely one.
Well, I think those numbers are very high. And
I mean, it's certainly been a bit of debate that's raised its head up again. But look, I want to get to this next story because a Brisbane State school is under fire for converting one of its female-only bathrooms to a gender-neutral bathroom without consulting parents first. Now, some parents are insisting their daughters are too afraid to go to those bathrooms, reporting male students are urinating on the seats and in the sanitary bins, or otherwise loitering around. Tania, this is appalling.
Yep, it certainly is. Look, why can't we just focus on actually providing young kids at school a safe place? Not shared place. No. Okay? It's not about shared places, it's actually about safe places. 12-year-olds are in Year 7. So you've got 12-year-old girls who are navigating through the challenges of puberty. And rightly should have access to their own bathrooms. Okay, this is outrageous. The idea that the Queensland Human Rights Commission essentially decided that every school in Queensland has to divvy up a certain number of unisex toilets. And they know that already there probably isn't sufficient toilets available for these kids. It's appalling. It's essentially putting through this social sort of virtue signalling, pushing this agenda on kids. Let kids be kids. I can understand why parents are outraged. These, kids and indeed boys should be able to navigate the challenges of puberty by going to their own bathroom, not being subject to that type of intimidation, to these sorts of issues.